All right, I am very excited to announce our next guest today, Bob Pockrass. He was a reporter for NASCAR for ESPN for 4 years, legendary reporter, and now is reporting for NASCAR over at Fox Sports. Welcome, Bob. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you on. I will say you are our biggest name on the show so far. So when we blow up, you can remember this, that you were on this show.
All right. That sounds like a plan.
So first, I just kind of wanted to talk about, obviously, the big news today was that the NASCAR Cup Series award ceremony, they moved from Charlotte to Nashville at the Music City Center on December 5th. And I think you were actually, your Twitter account was the one that popped up and showed me today. So thank you for that. And I saw that you previously mentioned on Twitter that you didn't think that this move would have anything to do with the possibility of the Cup Series returning to Nashville for a race at the fairgrounds. But I was wondering, do you think this is at least a positive sign for race fans in Tennessee?
I mean, I think it is. I think they'll try to have some events for the fans during the time there. So, I mean, I think it certainly is a positive. I just, to get the fairgrounds ready for National Series racing is going to take a lot of entities to give the okay. The promoters of the fairgrounds, Speedway Motorsports, the city. They probably have to get the soccer stadium built and everything. So, I think it shows that NASCAR likes Nashville and is interested in Nashville, but I don't think it does anything to enhance the ability to get the deal at the fairgrounds done, except for maybe, if it's a really strong event, maybe it sways some city leaders or people who need to be swayed. But I just think there's just a lot of people involved in that and at the Nashville Fairgrounds to get that done. And those challenges remain, whether the banquet is there or not.
Yeah, and I agree. I had the same thought. Obviously that, there's a lot of things in place that have to get done first to have it there. But like what you just said, I was thinking maybe at least it will help city officials realize that there's a big NASCAR fan base there that wants to see a race there again. But do you think this will have any effect on the award ceremony? Do you think it will be, bigger or not as big because it's not in Charlotte?
Well, I don't think NASCAR wants the Cup banquet or Cup Awards in Charlotte, because if they do, then it's just another dinner in Charlotte that the industry has. I think they feel like that, and it's nothing against Charlotte. It's just that to make it special, that they, in some ways, they need to have it outside of the Charlotte area.
Yeah, and I think Nashville's a great place then also because they clearly have a big fan base there, and it's in the South, obviously trying to get back to their roots. But obviously the most important thing that I wanted to talk to you about was the Aero package and what we have seen now from last weekend in Las Vegas. And Jeff Gluck's infamous Twitter poll, as I'm sure you're aware, he had a 56% approval rating, which was significantly up from last year at 35%. And based on the fan reactions I've seen, that seems pretty accurate for the overall consensus. And I think anyone would agree that this was clearly better than last year's product on the track. What were your thoughts, though? Because clearly you've been covering NASCAR for a long time. You've seen a lot of changes. Do you think that this Aero package looks pretty good, or do you think that the critics of it are maybe overreacting too soon?
Well, I don't think you're... I think if anybody says that it's a horrible package, that'll never work. There's no reaction. If anybody says it's a great package that is the answer to all the problems, they're probably overreacting. It was, when you look at Gluck's poll, the playoff race at Vegas last year was 84%. And the fall races in 2016 and 2017 were 62% and 71%, all higher than the 56% that Monday's or that last Sunday's race got. Now, could that be just because it was a Logano victory? And people aren't always the most thrilled with Joey, maybe, but I think The race on Sunday had late race passing for the lead, which fans want. it was as much a result of lap traffic as it was the ability for the drivers to make passes for the lead in general. So I still think the jury's out. I would have liked to have seen Kyle Busch be able to get through the field maybe a little bit easier after his penalty, or just make it seem like that, that if he really had a much, much better car, which I think a lot of people think he did, that maybe he'd have a little bit of an easier time to get to the front. But others would say, well, hey, if you make a penalty, it should be difficult to get to the front. So the other point on that race is that there were no cautions beyond the stage breaks, and I'd like to think that if drivers are battling extremely hard for position, that you're going to have cautions, because they're going to wreck because they're battling for position. And so either they just were very good on Sunday, or they just couldn't get they had to be in such kind of clean air to make a pass that there was no way they were going to wreck when trying to pass.
Yeah, and I agree. I mean, I think it looked pretty good personally. I'm sure no one's interested in what I think about it.
I think we're all interested. I mean, everybody looks at races differently. Some would say, as long as there's something going on somewhere, it's great. Others would say, well, hey, there needs to be more passing for the lead. It's just a matter of kind of your taste.
Yeah, and I think maybe people were expecting something like, a plate track. And that's clearly not what we're going to get. And personally, I have no problem with that, but I think that might have something to do with the criticism. Also, maybe this is a bit further outside, but I was thinking about this. I was worried about Ford possibly experiencing a bit of a slump transitioning to the Mustang, kind of like Chevy did last year with the Camaro. And clearly that doesn't seem to be the case. Do you think this new Aero package has anything to do with that?
I think Stewart-Haas Racing and Team Penske have a lot to do with it.
Yeah.
You're talking about two of the teams that have been two of the best teams. Graham Penske seemed to be a tick behind for much of last year, but by the end of last year, those are the two best organizations. So no, I'm not surprised. The Chevrolet, I think it was more surprising that the Chevrolet struggled as much as they did with the new body, as much as anything. But don't forget, the Camaros were built to the old inspection laser system, and then NASCAR brought in the body scanning system. So anything that they had hoped to take advantage of with the way the rules were being applied in 2017, they really couldn't take advantage of in 2018.
Yeah, and I mean, clearly, RCR was hyping themselves up a lot for this race, saying, because their qualifying times, and Austin Dillon finally looked pretty solid, and obviously their rookie Daniel Hemrick has looked really competitive, and clearly that didn't pan out. Do you think that RCR might have been overhyping how good their cars were going to be then, or do you think it just Daniel Hemrick's a rookie and Austin Dillon got that penalty and could never make it up?
Maybe a little bit of both. I think various teams are experimenting with different on trying to take advantage of different things presented to them with this rules package. I was talking to Hendrick Motorsports, and they really focused on increasing downforce, and that showed that they were very good in qualifying, but didn't necessarily help them as much in the race as they thought. And so it looked like other teams were maybe working on some other areas, and were able to. And obviously, Hendrick has struggled, so it probably could be the same thing with RCR. You see some things that look good in the simulators or look good in your initial testing, but then when you go out there and run 30, 40 lap runs, things change.
Right. Yeah, and it could just be, driver's ability. But also, one thing that I wanted to mention is everybody's been talking about the TV viewership in NASCAR and how it's been, such a problem. And clearly it's starting to bounce back a little bit. But one article that I think I saw you retweet from Forbes that was really interesting to me is that the streaming has been going way up. I think there was a 10% increase from last year, and then Atlanta saw a 28% increase. Do you think that this new increase in streaming is just the market and what people are going towards now, or do you think it has something to do with NASCAR actively seeking out a younger audience, which is what we kind of saw with Barstool Sports?
I think it's more that's the way people watch things now. I don't know that it's because of any specific outreach, but I mean, I can only speak from. I don't have any research. I can only speak for myself, but I watch a lot more things now on kind of on demand on my laptop rather than necessarily on my TV per se, from the various channels that I get through my subscription. So I think it's more. I think it's probably more just the way people are watching things these days. It's just the way people do it, and but maybe it does give some indication that fans are interested enough that if they are using the laptop as kind of a second screen, maybe they're at home with the TV on one thing, and then they're streaming the race at least to pay attention to it.
Yeah, and I mean, I know personally as a millennial. I only stream. I don't even have cable, so they're definitely hitting my market there for that. But one last thing before you go. For this race this weekend in Phoenix, what would be your picks for maybe the top 5 drivers? I mean, obviously Kevin Harvick is, he's won the most races at Phoenix. Anybody that stands out to you, though, with this new Aero package that maybe I'm not thinking about?
Well, I mean, it'll be interesting now that this will be the first 750 horsepower race of the year. No aero ducts, but they still have the big spoilers, so a lot more downforce. So I think you're always going to go with Harvick at Phoenix. You have Kyle Busch, who is a previous winner. Potentially Alex, if you're looking for some dark horses, I'd look at Alex Bowman. Obviously nearly won that 2016 race there. Chase Elliott's run well, and maybe I look at Kurt Busch.
Yeah, those are great picks. My only concern about Chase is just how his entire team has been running so far this year, but like you said, it is a completely different race than we've seen so far.
Yeah, it will be. It'll be another different thing. They're going to be going really fast in the corners there compared to what they were before.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm just personally, I live in Austin, so I'm really hoping that what we saw last weekend in Las Vegas with this air package, I'm really hoping that the Texas race is a little bit more entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, it will be, it'll be experiment every time you go to these tracks. I know people tend to lump the 1.5 mile tracks as, kind of the same, but they're all a little bit different, and certainly Texas is different with its two different, with turns 1 and 2 being different than turns 3 and 4. But just look at Fontana. That used to be a track everybody thought, well, gosh, they might have to rip the track racing, and then NASCAR changed the package, and the racing has gotten much better there.
Yeah. I mean, I've been desperate for NASCAR to do anything to make the Texas racing better, but that's just my personal bias, I guess. Anything else you want to mention? Any last insights before we go?
No, I mean, I just think it's 3 different winners in the first 3 races is good for fans, right? And looking at parity and everything. And I think again, the things to watch will be, one, if drafting still comes into play during qualifying, how and track position means so much. How much of a furor will drivers make if they just get in the wrong line in qualifying, and the games will just continue in qualifying? So it'll be interesting to see how that evolves. And then it will be, and typically when you have new packages, there tends to be a leapfrog effect. One team hits on something, and then another team hits on something else, or hits on what they're doing and what that other team was doing, and develops it better and leapfrogs them. So I expect a lot of mini surges and mini slumps this year among most of the organizations.
Okay, good to know. And once again, I just want to thank you for coming on. I know our audience is super stoked to hear from you. Like I said, you're one of the biggest voices in NASCAR right now, so this is an incredible opportunity for us and everybody over at Chairgatin. So thanks again for that.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get you on another time soon.
Sounds great.
All right, take care.